And then it was very important for BMW's motorcycle and company's history.
From 1926 until 1937, Henne shattered speed record after speed record, and BMWs became famous as the fastest motorcycles in the world.
Ernst Henne made 76 speed records on the motorcycles, and the last one was in 1937, and he rode about 204 miles per hour.
5 years after its first motorcycle, BMW began building cars. In 1928, they licensed a British design and built what they called the Dixie. The first true BMW automobile was named the 315. It came out in 1935. The 315 had a top speed of 60 miles an hour. A BMW motorcycle called the R51, also built in 1935, could go 125 miles an hour. In terms of technology, BMW motorcycles were still light years ahead of their cars.
In the late 30s, they have a new technology for welding the frames. So the motorcycles went more sporty. For example, the R51 with 500cc sports engines were very successful.
During his life, Ernst Henne witnessed a huge shift in the motorcycle world. Before World War II, motorcycles were solely used for daily transportation. After World War II, everything would begin to change. By the 1960s, many people in Europe could afford cars, and motorcycles were no longer being used for transportation. Now, they were used for sports and fun. BMW figured out how to provide both with a new line of motorcycles.
At the end of the 60s, you have all these 750cc bikes on the market, like Honda, like the Italian brands, and also BMW offered new motorcycle line, the so-called /5 series.
The /5 series was an instant success.
I bought an R75/5, and it changed my entire attitude about, the dependability of motorcycles. And so I quit my job and spent 3 years riding it around the world.
This series was very successful. In the first year, we have more than 10,000 motorcycles a year, and the business grew up year over year.
But by the late 1960s, BMW was making more money selling cars than motorcycles. Forced into the motorcycle business in 1923, ironically, BMW was now thinking about quitting.
Interestingly, BMW in the late 60s almost stopped producing motorcycles. The plan was they were so successful with the cars that they said, well, these motorcycles aren't, selling as well as cars, we'll stop.
But BMW didn't stop. Instead, they kept building bikes. One reason was that BMW had become the motorcycle of choice for law enforcement agencies around the world.
In the 60s, more than 100 countries used BMWs as police bikes, and it was also a foot in the door for new markets in the world.
As BMW expanded its market reach, it continued to build new bikes. The company focused its efforts on evolution, not revolution.
Often we talk about evolution or revolution. People think of revolution as being big steps. That would be, for me, throwing out everything you had and starting with something new.
BMW kept using its flat two-cylinder boxer engine, evolving it through the years with technical advances that kept making it more powerful. And BMW continued to use the drive shaft instead of a chain. In fact, they were about to produce what the world would call Germany's sexiest superbike. In October of 1973, BMW chose the Paris International Motorcycle Show to reveal its latest design to the world. A breakthrough design called the R90S.
The special model was the R90S, a very fine piece of motorcycle design.
It was the first BMW available to the public that had a top speed of 125 miles an hour.
Not only the top speed at this bike was fantastic, it was the average speed, for example, on a long racetrack like the Nürburgring in Germany. That was the unofficial test track of motorcycle journalists at this time. And R90S with 67 horsepower was faster than other bikes with 80 horsepower or more.
The R90S was full of engineering innovations. It was the first BMW to have a separate speedometer and tachometer. It had the first steering dampener, a device that reduced shaking when the front wheel hit a bump. And it was the first BMW with holes drilled in the disc brakes to save weight, keep the brakes cool, and make the bike stop faster.
You find it all over the years in the BMW motorcycle models. So you have this boxer engine, this opposed twin engine. You have the shaft drive to the rear wheel. These are two typical BMW features. You find it at the R32 in the 20s. You find it in the bikes in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 70s, in the sports models like R90S in the 70s.
BMW's first real sport bike. I know their bikes had been performance-oriented prior to that, but that was really the bike that said to the American audience, in addition to the Europeans, this is a bike that's meant to go fast and go around corners pretty well and really do it all, but it definitely had a sporting bent.
The R90S struck a chord with American motorcyclists. They clearly saw it as a new and very exciting bike.
And a guy comes by on an R90S and it's, you know, it's got the shape it's got and the cylinder's just sticking out. And you look at it, it makes this sound that doesn't sound like other motorcycles, and you look at it and you go, that's something different, isn't it? For me, anyway, it was one of the bikes that kind of ignited my interest and informed me of the difference between motorcycles at a very early age.
It was great. It was a very sort of different move in a different direction as sport bikes go. And of course, it developed into being one of the public's favorite bikes.
The R90S had a dual racing seat and a special cowling around the headlight. Each R90S was hand-painted, so no two bikes would ever look exactly the same. But every R90S shared the classic BMW design philosophy.
It was the whole concept. It's like a little bit like the R32. It's not only a fast engine into a frame and some brakes on it. It was the whole concept, one piece of motorcycle that was very successful.
While the R90S was engineered for speed, it came out years after BMW had stopped fielding a factory race team. But that didn't keep private riders from taking the bike racing. In 1976, Reg Pridmore, then a young British racer, won the first American motorcycle championship on a BMW R90S. The young Brit was living the American dream.
As a kid, grew up loving everything I saw in American movies. Shooting cowboys and it goes on. But I really was a hard-working person. And I heard that if you worked hard in America, you got someplace. And I really had that intention.
Pridmore had some serious help. First, a BMW dealer in the U.S. sponsored him.